Before his death, archaeologist Zecharia Sitchin revealed a terrifying secret hidden in the ancient Sumerian tablets, a prophecy of a 3,600-year cycle that brings unstoppable destruction to Earth. He spoke of returning gods, violent skies, and a world on the edge of collapse. Now, as the world faces chaos, strange celestial shifts, and rising unrest, you'd be shocked to know he warned us decades ago. But we ignored. Stay with us to discover what else Earth is about to face. Who was Zecharia Sitchin? Zecharia Sitchin was not a typical archaeologist or historian. Born in 1920 in Baku, a city that was then part of the Soviet Union, he grew up fascinated by history and the mysteries of ancient civilizations. His family later moved to what was then British-ruled Palestine, where he completed his education and earned a degree in economics from the University of London. But his true passion was not in finance or trade. From a young age, Sitchin developed an intense curiosity about the past, especially the strange symbols and stories carved into the clay tablets of Mesopotamia. When he moved to New York, Sitchin began teaching himself ancient Sumerian, Akkadian, and Hebrew. He spent years studying archaeological records and museum collections, convinced that mainstream scholars were missing something extraordinary. He believed that the earliest human civilizations had left behind clues that could rewrite the story of our origins. His lifelong mission became decoding these forgotten messages and bringing their hidden truths to light. In 1976, he published his first and most famous book, The 12th Planet. It marked the beginning of his celebrated Earth Chronicles series. In these books, Sitchin claimed that the gods of ancient Sumer were not mythological beings, but visitors from another planet, which he called Nibiru. He suggested that these beings, the Anunnaki, had genetically engineered humans thousands of years ago. His writings promised to reveal what he called lost messages from the past, warnings, prophecies, and records of cosmic events that shaped humanity itself. The world reacted with a mix of awe and disbelief. Many readers were fascinated by the idea that humanity might have alien origins. His books became bestsellers, inspiring documentaries, debates, and a devoted following. However, the academic world viewed his work with strong skepticism. Linguists and archaeologists accused him of mistranslating texts and bending meanings to fit his theories. Critics said that he read myths as literal history. Yet despite all the criticism, Sitchin's ideas refused to fade. His followers believed he had uncovered something the establishment wanted to hide. In his later years, Sitchin hinted at something even more alarming. He claimed that buried deep within the Sumerian tablets was a terrifying message, a prophecy that can change the world. Before his death in 2010, he spoke of texts that the world was not ready to understand. What exactly did these ancient tablets reveal? Which Sumerian inscriptions did he claim carried this hidden message, and how did he interpret them so differently from everyone else? Before answering these, let's first take you within the very clay records that first inspired his lifelong quest. Tablets, seals, inscriptions, and the hidden code. The ancient Sumerians left behind one of humanity's earliest written records. Their language, pressed into wet clay with reed styluses, became the world's first writing system known as cuneiform. Thousands of these tablets have survived, buried for millennia beneath sand and stone, later uncovered from temple libraries and royal archives. Each tablet held something: a trade record, a hymn, a law, or a myth. Among these were the great texts of the ancient world, the Enuma Elish, the Atrahasis flood story, and the epic tales of gods who ruled both heaven and earth. The Sumerians and their successors, the Akkadians, preserved their knowledge through bilingual lexicons and precise catalogs. It was a civilization obsessed with recording the divine order of the universe. To Zecharia Sitchin, however, these records were far more than religious poetry. He believed they contained a code, an ancient message hidden behind the lines of mythology. His key evidence came from a small artifact known as Cylinder Seal, VA 243. Now kept in the Vorderasiatisches Museum in Berlin. This seal, carved with tiny figures and circular symbols, became the cornerstone of his argument. He also turned to the Enuma Elish, the Babylonian creation epic. While most scholars viewed it as a symbolic story about divine conflict, Sitchin read it as a scientific record. He mapped each god to a planet and interpreted the epic's celestial battles as cosmic event, the birth of planets, collisions, and orbits. According to him, the Sumerian gods were not imaginary. They were ancient astronauts who traveled through the stars, and the tablets recorded their journeys as literal history. Sitchin's translation methods often redefine known words. He believed ancient scribes had disguised scientific truths in metaphor, fearing that later generations would not understand. By stripping away what he saw as layers of religious distortion, Sitchin claimed to reveal a secret cosmic story. Sitchin's vision was haunting. Could the ancients have witnessed something real in the skies? Something they tried to record the only way they knew how. His theory may defy science, yet it continues to spark one powerful question. What if those ancient stories were never just stories at all? Let's explore the cosmic and celestial claims underpinning his theory, and whether they hold any physical possibility. The astronomical claims behind the hidden message. Zecharia Sitchin's most astonishing claim was that the Sumerians had knowledge of a hidden planet called Nibiru, a world that, according to him, orbits our sun every 3,600 years. In Sitchin's view, this distant planet was home to the Anunnaki, ancient visitors who came to Earth in search of gold, a precious metal they needed to save their dying atmosphere. It was a story that sounded part science, part myth, and part prophecy. But how much of it actually came from the ancient texts? According to scholars like Dr. Michael S. Heiser, who specialized in Semitic languages, the word Nibiru did appear in cuneiform sources, but never in the way Sitchin described. Heiser's deep linguistic study, using the Chicago Assyrian Dictionary and texts analyzed by scholars such as Benno Landsberger, revealed that Nibiru referred to known celestial objects, not an unknown planet. Depending on context, it meant Jupiter, Mercury, the god Marduk, or a bright star. Sometimes it describes something that crosses the sky or holds constellations in place, but it was visible every year, not once every 3,600 years. The Sumerians, by their own records, knew of 5 planets along with the sun and moon, and never mentioned anything beyond. Their astronomical tablets, such as MUL-APN, cataloged fixed stars and planetary paths with precision, but no text supports the idea of a mysterious 12th planet. Sitchin's proposal of a planet X beyond Pluto was therefore a dramatic reinterpretation rather than a translation. Sitchin also claimed that the Anunnaki, the gods of ancient Mesopotamia, were in fact extraterrestrial scientists. He said they engineered humans by mixing their own DNA with that of early hominids, creating mankind to mine gold for them. Yet in the Sumerian corpus, the term Anunnaki actually means royal seed or princely blood, and it refers to divine beings associated with the sky god An, not alien visitors. There are no descriptions of flying machines, spacesuits, or gold mining expeditions. The winged discs often linked to the Anunnaki in popular imagery actually represent solar or lunar deities, not spacecraft. Equally questionable was Sitchin's claim of ancient cosmic wars. He suggested that myths describing divine battles, evil winds, or great floods were records of real nuclear conflicts or planetary collisions. But astronomers have found no evidence for such cataclysmic events tied to an unknown planet. The gravitational balance of our solar system leaves no room for a massive, hidden body passing near Earth every few millennia. The next step leads us into the very heart of Sitchin's obsession, the terrifying message he believed the Sumerians encoded about humanity's future. What did he really uncover before he died? And why did he think the gods were coming back? The terrifying hidden message. Zecharia Sitchin's most haunting belief was that the ancient Sumerian texts contained a prophecy, a warning meant for our time. He believed the stories of gods and cosmic events were not myths, but coded messages about the return of powerful beings who once shaped humanity's destiny. In his view, the Anunnaki, the gods who came from Nibiru, were not gone. They were waiting to return as part of a great cosmic cycle. The tablets, he said, were the earliest record of this divine plan, one that humanity had misread for thousands of years. At the heart of Sitchin's interpretation was the idea that history moves in vast repeating cycles tied to Nibiru's 3,600-year orbit. Every time the planet approached Earth, it brought both progress and destruction. Civilizations rose under the Anunnaki's guidance, then fell when their masters withdrew or punished them. The gods' favor and wrath, according to Sitchin, were not divine metaphors but the measurable effects of cosmic encounters. He pointed to ancient texts like the Lament for Ur, which describes an evil wind that destroyed cities around 2024 BCE. Mainstream scholars interpret this as poetic language for invasion or drought, but Sitchin read it as something far darker, a memory of nuclear devastation unleashed during a war among the Anunnaki themselves. To him, this was proof that advanced technology existed in ancient times, and that the same destructive forces could return when Nibiru's orbit brings its gods close to Earth once more. Sitchin also reinterpreted the Sumerian king list in genealogical texts as coded timelines. Each era of kingship, he argued, marked a cycle of Anunnaki intervention. The gods descended, ruled, withdrew, and promised to return. The flood myths, too, were not about divine cleansing, but planetary resets, when human civilization was wiped and remade. Central to his message was the belief that humans were not the original masters of Earth. We were, he claimed, engineered as workers, hybrids of Anunnaki and early hominids, created to serve their needs. But somewhere along the line, humanity gained independence. Our civilizations, religions, and kingships were gifts or remnants of the knowledge they left behind. To Sitchin, our technological rise was not coincidence, but memory resurfacing. He believed the next great reckoning was inevitable. Nibiru would one day reappear, bringing its gods and possibly another catastrophe. He tied this prediction to modern fears, including the 2012 phenomenon, suggesting that humanity's future might again be rewritten by its creators. Now that his terrifying message has been laid bare, one mystery remains. Did Sitchin leave behind any hidden proof, private notes, untranslated tablets, or evidence that could confirm his final claim before his death? The search for proof. Zecharia often mentioned tablets and seals hidden in private collections or museum vaults, saying the most crucial evidence remained unseen. His books spoke of the 14 tablets of Enki, which he described as ancient repositories of knowledge about the Anunnaki's role in creating humankind. But when experts began tracing his references, they discovered something troubling. No such tablets appear in any verified catalog, excavation record, or archive. Researchers from across the world took on the task of separating fact from fiction. Archaeologists and Assyriologists from the British Museum, the University of Pennsylvania, and Oxford's Electronic Text Corpus of Sumerian Literature examined Sitchin's sources line by line. They found that while he had indeed drawn from genuine Sumerian and Akkadian materials, like the Enuma Elish and Atrahasis, his translations were often inconsistent or speculative. Scholars such as Dr. Michael Heiser devoted years to reviewing every cuneiform mention of Nibiru and Anunnaki, concluding that Sitchin's interpretations were based more on imagination than on linguistic fact. Some independent researchers tried to go further. Dr. Victor Avrin, a Near Eastern historian, and Peter Lemessurier, a linguistic analyst, both attempted to trace Sitchin's so-called lost texts. They contacted museum curators and cross-checked artifact inventories, but found no record of the tablets of Enki. Even within the collections Sitchin cited, such as those of the Vorderasiatisches Museum in Berlin and the British Museum, no evidence supported his descriptions. What did exist were thousands of genuine Sumerian tablets, carefully cataloged, none mentioning extraterrestrial beings, genetic experiments, or mining operations for gold. Attempts to replicate Sitchin's translations have further weakened his case. The website SitchinIsWrong.com, managed by academic linguists, compared his renderings with official scholarly editions and exposed numerous inaccuracies. For instance, his reading of the VA-243 cylinder seal as a solar system map was proven false. The 12 dots he described as planets are now confirmed to be decorative stars. Similarly, phrases he translated as references to flying ships or nuclear weapons turned out to describe storms, winds, and divine wrath in poetic form. Let's follow the trail into the shadows, the claims of secret networks, censorship, and suppression that Sitchin believed kept his discovery buried from the world. Conspiracy, suppression, and the knowledge filter. Zecharia Sitchin believed that his translations threatened powerful interests, both academic and beyond. He often suggested that his discoveries about the Anunnaki and ancient alien intervention were deliberately downplayed or silenced because they questioned humanity's accepted story of creation. He claimed that early in his career, Certain museum curators and researchers privately acknowledged unusual Sumerian inscriptions but refused to speak publicly, fearing for their reputations and funding. To Sitchin, this was not accidental. It was a structured suppression designed to protect an established version of history that served political, religious, and institutional stability. Many who followed Sitchin drew parallels between his struggles and those of other suppressed researchers. They linked his story to broader conspiracies, such as government cover-ups about UFO encounters, the secrecy of NASA's early space findings, and the alleged suppression of ancient technologies in places like Iraq and Egypt. Some even pointed to the 2003 invasion of Iraq, suggesting that part of the motive was to recover or conceal ancient Sumerian artifacts connected to Sitchin's theories about the Anunnaki. While these claims remain unproven, they became deeply intertwined with his legacy, fueling the idea that ancient knowledge was being deliberately hidden. The knowledge filter theory, popularized by science historian Michael A. Cremo, fit perfectly with Sitchin's narrative. It proposed that scientific institutions, subconsciously or deliberately, filter out evidence that contradicts accepted timelines. Sitchin's followers saw this as proof that the archaeological establishment actively buried anything that pointed to advanced ancient civilizations or extraterrestrial contact. Museums, they argued, controlled not only artifacts but also the narrative of human origins, deciding which discoveries the public was allowed to know. Another recurring claim in conspiracy circles was that secret societies such as the Freemasons and the Vatican had long guarded forbidden knowledge about humanity's extraterrestrial past. Some theorists pointed to Vatican archives said to contain ancient texts on beings from the heavens, similar to the Anunnaki. Others referenced leaked military documents describing UFOs near ancient sites in Mesopotamia. Together, these threads painted a picture of global information control, where science, religion, and government quietly work together to maintain order by keeping humanity ignorant of its true beginnings. Yet despite decades of criticism, Sitchin's books were never fully dismissed from public consciousness. Each attempt to debunk him seemed only to strengthen his supporters' belief that he had uncovered something dangerous. When major media outlets ignored his claims or labeled them fringe, his followers saw that as confirmation of the very suppression he described. But here arises another haunting question. If the real truth was buried beneath centuries of secrecy and censorship, could modern tools finally unearth it? Could artificial intelligence, scanning through ancient cuneiform tablets with precision no human could match, uncover fragments that vindicate or destroy Sitchin's legacy once and for all? Modern AI and the interpretation of ancient texts. In the past, decoding ancient languages depended entirely on human eyes, patience, and interpretation. But now, artificial intelligence is entering the field, and it is transforming how we uncover humanity's oldest stories. Across Europe and the United States, scientists are using AI to read cuneiform tablets that have been unreadable for thousands of years. Researchers at Martin Luther University, Halle-Wittenberg, and Johns Hopkins have built systems that scan tablets in 3D, allowing them to see faint marks invisible to the human eye. What once took decades of guesswork can now be analyzed in minutes. Other breakthroughs like Pythia, a neural network developed for ancient Greek inscriptions, can fill in missing text by predicting what words were originally carved. It studies context, grammar, and word frequency, restoring damaged inscriptions with startling accuracy. For Sumerian and Akkadian texts, experimental tools like Translator Mind and AI-powered NLP systems are beginning to build dictionaries, suggest translations, and recognize grammatical patterns. Together, these models are giving scholars a clearer look into the oldest written records on Earth. Yet the technology is not without flaws. Ancient writing is filled with metaphors, symbolism, and poetic ambiguity, something no algorithm fully understands. A single Sumerian word might mean heaven, God, or sky, depending on the context. AI can predict likely meanings, but it cannot yet interpret the cultural or mythic layers that human experts consider essential. And when the training data includes flawed translations or biased interpretations, those errors are amplified, producing hallucinated results that sound convincing but are completely false. Despite these risks, AI's potential to test controversial translations is enormous. For decades, Zecharia Sitchin claimed that ancient Sumerian tablets described humanity's creation by extraterrestrial beings, the Anunnaki, and warned of their return. Using modern AI translation models, scholars can now revisit the very same tablets Sitchin cited. Early tests show striking differences. Where Sitchin read Planet Nibiru, AI-assisted translations often read crossing or transition. The 12 dots on the famous VA-243 seal, once claimed to represent 12 planets, are now identified as decorative stars. AI's pattern recognition can also track how often sky gods or descending beings appear across hundreds of texts, showing whether these ideas were unique revelations or simply common mythic imagery. More than a decade after his death, Zecharia Sitchin's influence refuses to fade. He inspired generations of ancient astronaut believers and alternative archaeologists who argue that human civilization began with extraterrestrial contact. Even popular shows like Ancient Aliens borrow heavily from his framework, reintroducing his ideas to millions who may never have heard his name. Whether one views him as a visionary or a master of speculation, his shadow still stretches across the study of ancient mysteries. He succeeded in sparking public interest in Sumerian history, a culture that most people had barely heard of before him. His work encouraged readers to look beyond textbooks and to question official narratives. When assessing his claims, it becomes clear that some elements can be checked and others remain pure speculation. For independent researchers today, there are clear paths and pitfalls. Learning Sumerian and Akkadian from academic sources, consulting verified museum catalogs, and checking peer-reviewed editions are essential steps. The danger lies in cherry-picking fragments that fit one's theory, or mistaking poetic metaphors for factual records. Real discovery demands patience, humility, and evidence, not the excitement of a ready-made mystery. And so, Sitchin's story does not end in certainty, but in curiosity. Whether his message was myth, mistake, or hidden truth, it continues to challenge our understanding of the past. Perhaps somewhere, sealed in dust and darkness, lies a single tablet that could end the debate forever. The story may not be over, for the last revelation could still be waiting to surface. What are your thoughts on it? Please share in the comments.